I'd like to congratulate Deputy Morna Sullivan for proposing her motion this evening. I think it's a powerful motion, and I think it's a very timely motion at a time when hopefully Ireland is beginning to come through the crisis that has beset us. And I'm very proud as a member of Dáil Éireann to sign the motion supporting Deputy O'Sullivan. The motion before the House tonight calls for three things. It calls for a change to how we view social protection, so that those who are having to avail of social protection that they have paid for, that they can live with dignity while they're trying to find themselves a new job, while they're trying to recover from whatever has beset them. The motion calls for impact analysis, socio-economic impact analysis of budgetary decisions, something I've been advocating for since I was fortunate enough to be elected to the House in 2011. And thirdly, the motion calls for a vision which would ensure coherence in public policy decisions around the common good. And I think all of these should be supported. I'm going to speak to all three of those. The issue of social protection is one for debate. I don't quite know what the right answer to this is, but I think there should be a debate in the Oireachtas, and I think there should be a debate publicly. As it stands, if you lose your job, you got to survive on €188 a week, regardless of what your situation is, regardless of how much money you need to live a life of dignity. Now, that's an Irish solution. There are other countries in the Eurozone and around the world which have a different approach to social protection. You pay in at whatever rate is agreed, and if you are unfortunate enough to lose your job through sickness or through whatever the reason is, you get a replacement rate, or close to a replacement rate, and it falls off over time, which obviously is a healthy incentive to get yourself a new job. And critically, it means you don't fall into arrears on your mortgage. You don't have to start trying to hide from your children why they can't have a particular food or whatever it is. All of those awful, awful changes that people have to make, and parents have to make, and families have to make when somebody loses their job. The rate of social protection insurance we pay in this country, PRSI, is low. And so there is a question to be asked and a debate to be had nationally, which says the current rate of social protection, more or less, pays for €188 a week if you lose your job. And there's a conversation to be had to say, do we as a nation want to pay more? Do we want to move to a model that says, look, we are going to have to up the amounts, but if you lose your job, you will continue to live in dignity while you find yourself a new job? My opinion would be yes. I would prefer that system. I would prefer that system for myself. I would prefer that system for everybody I know. It's a choice to be made, and I think this government could take a real leadership role, and I think the Labour Party could take a real leadership role in having that debate. And it extends to state pensions. The state pension is a subsistence pension, and the problem is we don't pay in enough. The policy of contributions through your lifetime isn't enough. Now, we're going to hit a pensions crisis. We're beginning to see it with private pension funds failing. We're going to hit it in the public sector as well, when the worker to pensioner rate moves from about 5 to 1, which it is now, to about 2 to 1, which is going to happen over the next 25 years, 30 years. And there actually isn't going to be enough money out of current taxation to pay for all of the public sector pensions. So it's not just a private sector issue. I would very much favour a system whereby an opt-in policy was introduced that said your PRSI is going up, but here's what it's going to be used for. It's not going to be a subsistence pension you get, and actually maybe you don't need a private pension now because you're paying into a pension at a higher rate. You can check at any age, you can log into your account, and you can see where your fund is at. And I think that's a very important conversation to be had, and I would like to wholeheartedly agree with Deputy O'Sullivan in what she's saying in her motion. The second thing the motion talks to is that we have analysis on the effect of budgetary impact on budgets and on other policies. And this is something I've been calling for several years now. I'll give you an example. After, I think it was Budget 2012 was passed, I spoke to a guy I know in the Department of Social Protection, and I said, who's been hit really badly? Obviously, everyone's got to be hit. We're in the middle of a crisis. There's tough decisions to be made. But has anyone been wiped out by this? And he said, yeah. He said, lone parents have. He said, this government is introducing a piece of legislation which brings down lone parent support for the kid, or rather the age for the kid, from 18, and it came down year after year, and I think it's coming down, or it's just down to 7 or 8 years of age right now. And he said that piece of legislation was actually designed when Fianna Fáil was in government. And it was designed at a time when there was basically full employment, and a single mum or a single dad could quite easily find themselves a part-time job. And the thinking was, look, if your kids are at school from 9 in the morning till 3 o'clock, then there's no reason why you can't go out, earn some money, and therefore we're going to reduce the lone parent supplement. But the guy I spoke to said the legislation was never, ever envisaged for a time when there is no work for these parents. Now, that's been done in a few different areas, and the result is that the lone parents living in deprivation and their children living in deprivation has gone up from 1 in 4 to 1 in 2. 1 in 2 lone parents and 1 in 2 children living in these families now, or children living in half these families now, are experiencing deprivation. And it's an example of why we need the kind of analysis that we're not getting. There was a report done, which I've cited in the House before, that looked at Ireland's budgetary process and concluded we've one of the worst. And on a score of 0 to 10, on the quality of data given to parliamentarians to interrogate budget proposals, we score 0 out of 10. And on the time given to parliamentarians to look at the budgets before they vote, we score 0 out of 10. Now, before this debate, we were in the report stage on the finance bill. So here's some questions on the finance bill. What is the distributional impact of the finance bill across the country? We don't know. What's the gender impact? We don't know. What's the geographic impact? We don't know. What's the age impact? We don't know. Are there any particular groups, small groups, vulnerable groups, that have been hit particularly hard and disproportionately by the finance bill? We don't know. But the finance bill will be, report stage will be guillotined tomorrow, and the government TDs will vote for it. And they will vote on things where they haven't got sufficient information, I believe, to make those answers, or to make those decisions, rather. We're relying on people like the ESRI. Now, Deputy Joanna Tuffy and I have had a public debate about whether or not previous budgets were progressive or regressive. Deputy Tuffy believes they are progressive. She was citing ESRI research and voted for them accordingly. And I've seen other ESRI research that shows that they're regressive and oppose them accordingly. I believe that if Labour TDs in particular had analysis that showed that the previous budgets were regressive, and they did these kind of things to vulnerable groups like lone parents, that they mightn't have voted against it, but they would have applied a lot of pressure behind the scenes to have the budgets improved. But that's not something they can do without the correct information. So I hope this is something that can be improved. And I do note with some cautious optimism that in the government's counter motion, they say that a social impact assessment of the main taxation and welfare measures will be carried out by a cross-departmental body. Now, I don't know if that is full equality budgeting. We'll wait to see what the Minister has to say. But I'm glad to see that at least something is happening. And I might ask the Taoiseach, if she's leading on this piece of work, that for future years, or the Taoiseach as Taoiseach, that whatever process is being put in place, will you take a look and see if it's possible to get it in place so that the information can be provided to the House on the same day as the budget, and indeed to the public on the same day as the budget, so it can inform committee stage in the Finance Bill, committee stage in the Social Welfare Bill. I'll finish just on a reflection, which is the last line in the government's counter motion says that the government is committed to a vision of Ireland which provides for economic and social recovery, and so focuses on measures which will assist people to return to work, continue to build consumer confidence, and strengthen demand in the domestic economy. Now, obviously, a focus on increasing employment rates is extremely important, but it's interesting that the other two areas of policy measure are consumer confidence and domestic demand, which basically means we'll have policies to help people get back to work, which is great, and help people buy more stuff. Increase consumer confidence, increase domestic demand, basically means people will buy more stuff, which I think is lacking in a motion which was about equality and about human rights. So just a reflection, maybe now there is time for the government to broaden its thinking beyond economic recovery to other things like rights and like more of the equality issues that Deputy Murphy's motion brings forward. Thank you very much, Chair.